Hi, my name is Brian, and I'm going to be showing you today how to assemble a T-Series 12-foot trampoline. The trampoline comes in 3 boxes. Once you open all the boxes and take all the contents out, you're going to have a net enclosure, safety pad, some springs to work with, this spring puller kit, some bands, your screws, top rails for your trampoline, some leg extensions as well, some W-shaped legs, just like this one right here, a net enclosure for the outside. We also got the ladder that comes with it, and the top rails for the net enclosure. Once all the contents are out of the box, you're going to go ahead and want to assemble the top rails using all of the pieces right here. You're going to want to set them out in a circle with all the poles right here facing down on the ground. So once you have the top rails aligned, you're going to have a shape just like this, like it's supposed to be round. Once you're done putting all these pieces together, no bolts, just put in the rails where they go, you're going to go ahead and start building the leg extensions. For the leg extensions, you're going to need these leg extensions right here, and you're going to need these W-shaped extensions as well. And to do that, it's very simple. You just slide one in, slide the next one in, and you continue the process until you're done with all of them. One thing you have to note about the leg extension is that the extension has 2 different holes. One is a rectangular, one's a little bit more round. You're going to want to make sure that the rectangular piece is attached to the leg extension so that both holes line up like this. And you're going to want to do that with all of them on both sides. So once you have the leg extensions attached to the W-shaped legs, you're going to want to go ahead and open your bag of bolts. And then start putting the bolts in each of these holes with the screwdriver that we provide. Once you have all the leg extensions put together, like this, you're going to want to use the rest of the bolts that you have and start putting them in the top rails that line with each other. You want to put these in with the screwdriver or a drill, whatever you prefer. So once you have all the W leg extensions assembled and the top rail assembled, you're going to want to head and slide all the leg extensions into this corresponding slots on the top rails. Once you do that with all of them, you're going to have all these little holes right here to put the rest of your screws in. So once you go ahead and do that, you're going to move on to the next step. So once you have the W leg extensions attached to the top rail and hand tightened, you're going to want to go ahead and get the jumping mat and place it on the inside, as I have it so. Once you have the mat on the floor, you're going to want to get all your springs and your spring tool, and start putting the springs. And you're going to want to start to put the springs on. So when attaching the springs to the jumping mat and the top rails, you're going to have to do it in a specific fashion. Once you attach the spring onto the rail and onto the mat, instead of going to the next one over, you're going to have to go across. And you're going to repeat this pattern until you're done with all of them. So let me show you real quick. It doesn't have to be accurate, but as long as you're very close to it, you'll be just fine. The reason I ask that you do it this way is to prevent the top rails from turning on you and keeping the trampoline lopsided. And you're going to repeat this process until you're done with all of them. So when you're trying to attach the springs onto the jumping mat and the top rail, it's a very simple process, and to not kill yourself, I'll show you how to do it. The spring has 2 different sides. One's more of a hook, one's more of a C. You want to put the hook part onto the jumping mat itself, so. And then you're going to want to stretch this to the pole, to the top rail. And when you first start off, it's going to be very easy, especially when you're going one across from each other. But when you start to get to the parts where it gets real difficult, you're going to want to use the spring, the tool we provide, put it on the C, and pull it until it falls inside. And that's how you finish the rest of the springs on the jumping mat. So now, once you have the jumping mat onto the top rails, you're pretty much going to want to put the safety pad. Now the safety pad is very important because it covers the springs and it prevents you from injuring yourself if you were to happen to land on the springs. To attach the safety pad onto the trampoline, you need to use these bolas that we provide. and there's these little tabs where you slide them through. And I'm going to show you real quickly. It's very simple to attach these. What you're going to want to do is open this tab, slide the little hoop through, bring it down, keep your finger in the hoop, bring the ball around, and just loop them together. You're going to continue doing that with each of them until they're all fully locked in place. So once you have the trampoline set up with the safety pad and the jumping mat, you're going to want to start working on the net enclosure poles. The net enclosure poles come with the top and with the bottom piece. You can tell the difference between both of them because one has a blue top, one has a black top. The black top goes towards the floor and the blue top goes towards the sky. To put them together, it's very simple. You put the ground piece on the ground first. And then you just slide them right in. Once all the gap is cleared, you're finished. So if you're having an issue putting the top rail into the bottom rail, what you want to do is get them as close to each other, or put them in as close as you can, and just bang it down with the floor. If that's not an option for you, just use a hammer to bang it in down. So to get started on the net enclosure poles, once you have these put together, you're going to want to take off the blue top, or you're going to leave the blue top on. You're going to get your net enclosure, and to tell the difference whether the net enclosure is inside or out, these pockets are for your net enclosures, and these are supposed to be on the outside. So your net enclosure poles are going to be going through this hole right here, and they will stop at the top right here. You want to slide it in the best you can, and then just pull it down. Make sure you keep the foam inside, so that if you or your children hit yourselves on the pole, at least there's some padding. And you're going to want to continue this process until you're done with all the net enclosure poles. So to put on the brackets for the net enclosure poles, it's very simple. The brackets come like this with the bolt attached. Take off the bolts. You make sure that the small hole goes for the net enclosure pole and the bigger hole goes for the W extension leg. You're gonna go ahead and run that bolt across. And then you start to tighten it. You don't want to tighten too hard immediately. You want to just hand tighten to the point where it won't move around on you, so that you make sure that all the net enclosure poles are where they're supposed to be first. We don't provide the 10mm ratchet, but we do recommend you use one, since it does make the process a little bit easier. And then you repeat this process for the rest of the net enclosure poles. To fasten the net enclosure poles and to keep it from moving, you're going to have to use the clips that we provide. You're going to use one of the clips on the top and another clip on the bottom. And you notice that the footrest is on the bottom, so that's how you know you have the setup going on right. Once you do this with all the net enclosure poles, you're going to want to start to lock down the net enclosure itself. And to do that, it's very simple. There's these small clips that go underneath, and to attach them is very simple. You just bring the clip over, and then you attach it along where you put the springs. And you do that with you complete this process until the whole net enclosure is tucked in as so. So now once you've got the net enclosure clipped under and all the net enclosure brackets tied up, you're left with these little clips. And the little clips are fairly simple. They're just to close off the space in between these brackets. And they just clip on like so, and you do that with the rest of them. Once you put all of the brackets on, go. So now you're getting towards the end of finishing your trampoline, and I know you're excited, but we have one more step. Towards the entrance, you're going to want to get your ladder, pull up the safety pad, and you play on the top rail itself, pull down the mat, and you're set to play. Now once you're inside and you want to play with the trampoline, there is a safety feature provided where you're able to close the zipper, very bottom, and we also have extra clips for extra protection. We have these two right here, and this last one on the bottom.